catalyst of George Floyd's murder was brought a lot of attention to those issues that we have to face. And I think it all comes down to how do we individually choose to try and make a difference. And I think for me, I was very fortunate to join EJN and have a band of like-minded people who were advocates for housing and social change through housing, and working for diversity and inclusivity and making a just town and making a more just town. And so I think that inspired me to get involved as a citizen at large with the Housing Plan Working Group and work on the challenges that we have in Needham now and creating a new housing plan for 2022. And that will set the initiatives for what we're going to need to do for zoning changes. So I think what you'll see in the upcoming videos is a variety of issues and information for everyone to understand about what the challenges are that we face and the different elements of housing in Needham. And so I invite you all to see this video, and I hope you enjoy it and hope you find it meaningful and informative. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to Moving Forward Together with Equal Justice in Needham. I am the show host, Maciel Gallardo. We all know that there is a housing crisis in the Boston metropolitan area. With too few units to go around, the price of housing has skyrocketed. Many people are cost burdened, which means they pay so much for their housing that they have to skimp on other essentials like food and healthcare. In Needham, the high price of land for housing has created a situation in which developers are profiting by tearing down the small houses that were prevalent in town and affordable for middle and working class families, and replacing them with big houses that require substantial wealth to buy. EJN participants have been looking at this trend and would like to spark conversation in town about how we can encourage more affordable housing so that residents of all economic demographics are welcome. We have put together a slideshow that is designed to answer questions that people have about what affordable housing is and how building more affordable units may affect town finances and its character.
We love living in the town of Needham. It's located right near major roads with public transportation to Boston, high-performing schools, a wonderful library, convenient local restaurants, shops, and services, beautiful parks and playing fields, and most important, terrific people. The town is so desirable that lots of folks want to move here, and people who live here want to be able to stay or move back. Unfortunately, it's becoming harder and harder for people to join us in enjoying all the wonderful amenities that we and our families experience here. Why is that? The short answer? Housing costs have skyrocketed. Land is scarce, and throughout our region, supply is low and demand is high. So, the median price for a house in Needham is $1.3 million and climbing. And average rents are well over $2,000 a month. The smaller family homes that were common in Needham just a few years ago are being torn down at a fast pace and replaced by large houses. Many local workers, seniors, young families, and other low and moderate income people simply can't afford to live here. That's why our town created an Affordable Housing Plan Working Group. We need to provide more housing choice, more options, more types, sizes, and price points to accommodate the kind of socioeconomic diversity on which any town thrives. Townhouses, apartments, and accessory dwelling units could provide affordable options. Historically, the town developed with racially restrictive covenants and economically exclusive lot size requirements that led to our current levels of low economic and racial diversity. It is time to explore how we can remedy the past discrimination and the current decline of housing options so that we can create a sustainable and diverse Needham. It's time to do our share. People use the term affordable housing to mean many different things. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, states that housing is, quote, affordable if housing costs are no more than 30% of household income. They use the term cost burden for those spending more than 30% of income on housing expenses. In Needham, 24%, 1 in 4 of households are cost burdened. That is, their housing is not affordable. AMI stands for Area Median Income, which is calculated for every metropolitan region in the U.S. by HUD. The Area Median Income in Needham for 2021, that is 100% of AMI, is $84,560 for an individual and $120,800 for a family of 4. If we use the 30% of household income as a definition of, quote, affordable, we can see that a family of 4 would not be paying more than $3,020 each month on housing-related expenses. To put this in context, the average salary for a teacher, firefighter, or retail worker in Needham falls below 100% of AMI, making it very difficult for those who provide valuable services to our residents to live in our town. Low-income or deeply affordable housing refers to housing such as that provided by our Needham Housing Authority and is available to those making approximately 30 to 50% of AMI, who then pay no more than 30% of their income to live in NHA housing or other deeply affordable housing. Under the section of a state law known as 40B, 25% of the units in a multi-unit development must be, quote, affordable. Under this definition, it means affordable to those making 80% of AMI, or 20% of the units offered to those whose incomes are 50% of AMI. Market affordable simply means affordable to workers and households of moderate incomes without any subsidy or restriction. An affordability gap is a gap between current prices to buy or rent and the wealth and income needed to pay those prices. In Needham, based on the $1.3 million median home cost, a 20% down payment, and a 5% rate on a 30-year mortgage, monthly payments on the mortgage alone are over $5,500. That's $66,000 a year, before adding over $12,000 in property taxes and thousands more for utilities, upkeep, improvements, etc. Only those with sizable savings and/or incomes are able to buy into or stay in Needham, given our current lack of housing choice. At the same time, middle-income renters all over Massachusetts are having a hard time paying market rates for a limited number of available apartments. Clearly, there is a sizable affordability gap. Chapter 40B enables local zoning boards of appeal to approve affordable housing developments under flexible rules, if at least 20 to 25% of the units have long-term affordability restrictions. Once a municipality has reached the 10% SHI, that is, affordability requirement, it is no longer required to abide by 40B regulations. You might hear that Needham has met its affordability requirement. That is technically true. Due to recent large housing developments, Needham has exceeded the target set by the state for affordable housing, which is an SHI, or Subsidized Housing Inventory, of 10%. It is critical to note, however, that the actual percentage of affordable homes in Needham is approximately 6.7%. The discrepancy is because for purposes of SHI calculation, all units in a 40B building are counted, including the 75 to 80% of units in the development that are rented at market rates. If the intent is to produce affordable housing, 40B is but one step in the right direction. An accessory dwelling unit, or ADU, is a secondary housing unit on a single-family residential lot. ADU regulations generally regulate where they can be built, who can live in them, whether they require a special permit, and other factors such as maximum size, parking, infrastructure, and egress. The current ADU law in Needham has a number of restrictions. It requires a special permit, which must be renewed every 3 years, for a unit that can be occupied only by specific family members or caregivers, that must be no larger than 850 square feet, and be inside the primary residence and not have the appearance of a second residential unit. There is discussion on our town boards to change some of these requirements, which could produce additional housing units at lower rents and provide needed income for senior homeowners, for example, who might be struggling with rising housing expenses. Zoning began in the U.S. in the early part of the 20th century within the context of racial and ethnic segregation to bring some thoughtful planning to municipalities. Unfortunately, in the middle part of this century, even when express statutory segregation had long been deemed unconstitutional, it was often used to support the racial and economic segregation that we see in so many urban and suburban settings. Inclusionary zoning has a requirement or incentive to reserve a specific percentage of units in new residential development for low or moderate income households. Needham has some inclusionary zoned areas, typically requiring 12.5% of units in new developments of 6 units or more to be sold or rented at prices that are affordable to incomes at or below 80% of AMI standard. Single-family zoning allows for only single-family housing and usually designates the minimum lot size for each dwelling. In 1948, Needham increased the minimum lot size for a single-family dwelling from 7,000 square feet to 10,000 square feet in its single residence B district and created a new single residence A district requiring 1 acre. These changes made it harder for lower-income families to settle in Needham, just when the World War II veterans were ready and able to enter the housing market because of the GI Bill. While the GI Bill did not explicitly exclude African American veterans from its benefits, it was structured in such a way that the 1.2 million returning black veterans were denied access and were unable to build the generational wealth that white veterans enjoyed. The 1948 change also eliminated some multifamily zoning. Currently, approximately 92% of Needham is single-family zoned. Multifamily zoning in Needham is defined as 3 or more residential units in a building. Under this definition, 2-family buildings and ADUs are not multifamily housing. Mixed-use zoning allows for a combination of residential, commercial, and/or industrial uses in the same building. Density, which refers to the number of units allowed on a given area of land, can affect a number of things. On the one hand, greater density might contribute to increased traffic and more school-aged students. However, it is also true that greater density increases housing availability, housing choices, economic vibrancy, and resident diversity, while also reducing energy consumption. Density enables communities to offer a wide range of housing products at different price points. The MBTA Communities Law is part of a larger 2020 Massachusetts Economic Development Act that amended the State Zoning Act. It requires that MBTA communities, which includes Needham, create at least one zoning district with the following features. The district must allow multifamily housing at a minimum gross density of 15 units per acre, with permitting as of right, be suitable for families with children and have no age restriction, and be no more than 1/2 mile from a public transportation station. Final guidelines have yet to be set as of April of 2022. The penalty for not complying with this law is the forfeiture of specific funding sources available from the Commonwealth, and a lost opportunity to create critically needed additional housing units. The Needham Housing Authority currently manages 456 units of low-income, deeply affordable housing in Needham. These are made up of 206 units for senior and disabled individuals, 130 units for families, and 120 Section 8 vouchers. The NHA manages most of the deeply affordable units in Needham. 80% of the units are over 40 years old, almost half over 60 years old, and many of them are in serious disrepair. Due to lack of funding from the federal and state governments, maintenance has been deferred for decades. Obviously, these buildings currently do not provide the quality housing that our town should be, or wants to be, offering for Needham residents. In the summer of 2021, the NHA engaged the Cambridge Housing Authority as its planning and development consultant and partner. Together, they are implementing a multi-year project to update and expand housing units under the NHA's management. It is called the Modernization and Redevelopment Initiative, or MRI. Our town has an opportunity to help the NHA to use $1.5 million in CPA funds as leverage to get the $68 million needed to fund the initial phases of the MRI. Funding for this plan will come from many sources, primarily from the federal and state governments. However, in order to be in a position to leverage those funds, the NHA is asking town meeting this year to approve $1,467,978 from Needham's Community Preservation Funds to support the implementation of the MRI. NHA is also forecasting that it may need an additional $5 million of town's community preservation funds over the next 2 years. For historical context, note that since its inception in 2006, only 4% of CPA money has been allocated to housing. Needham's public school expenses are 40% of Needham's annual budget, and more students require more funding. but recent projections show a leveling off or a slight decline in the town school population in the next few years, leaving space for new children to enter the schools without any increase in the total number of students. Also, many new affordable units would be apartments for seniors who want to live in town, or singles, or couples without children. Given the leveling school capacity trends and the planned renovation work for the Mitchell, Pollard, and High Rock school buildings, we can proactively prepare our schools for a future that includes more students living in more affordable housing. We should encourage the development of affordable housing for families because it provides more housing choice and greater diversity, which benefit Needham school children and helps to close the racial education gap and mitigate the regional housing crisis. New housing construction that is affordable for low and middle income families and seniors would have a positive effect on climate because small living spaces require less energy to heat and cool. New construction can take advantage of recent technological advances that reduce energy consumption. In addition, most new affordable units will be in multifamily developments located within walking distance of Needham's commuter rail stations, encouraging more sustainable transportation. They also use fewer landscaping resources than single-family homes, including water and polluting fertilizers and pesticides. People might ask themselves, will adding more affordable housing reduce the value of my home? Fortunately, research indicates a resounding no. In one review, 13 out of 14 studies that examined the impact of proximity to affordable housing on property values have found no significant negative effect. And most research assumes higher density projects and not the less impactful, integrated, lower density housing Needham will generally pursue. And there is a strong argument that more diverse housing options, and diversity in general, can increase values or at least provide greater pricing stability. Racial diversity has been increasing in Needham, albeit slowly, and property values have skyrocketed. And think of Brookline's wide variety of housing types and a more diverse population, yet its housing prices remain among the highest in the region. Newton also has many more apartment buildings and multifamily development, yet its single-family homes keep appreciating. Needham and the surrounding communities suffer from missing middle housing. Research from the Urban Institute supports that, quote, communities with a broad range of housing types and prices provide another benefit, greater stability in the face of a housing market downturn. Currently, 24% of Needham households are housing cost burdened, and any system that has participants increasingly living on the financial edge puts us all at risk. There is a broader threat to our community. If businesses cannot afford to hire and retain employees locally, they move elsewhere and take the home buyers with them. Building more affordable housing is both morally right and economically sound.
Thank you for watching our program on affordable housing. We can't change Needham's discriminatory past, but we can be welcoming now. We can alter the trajectory of economic exclusion by committing to building housing that is affordable to people of all economic strata, including all races and ethnicities. We can build a more equitable, diverse, and vibrant Needham. Please take a moment to fill out our survey on the EJN website about your thoughts on what was presented today. If you want to get in touch, you can email us at thishappenshereinneedham@gmail.com. Until next time.